I'm joined now by Labour's Jonathan Ashworth, the Shadow Paymaster General, to discuss all of the day's news. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good
morning. Wanted to start on the dispute that sort of erupted yesterday in and around Frank Hester's comments, the Tory party donor. The Prime Minister obviously acknowledged by late yesterday afternoon that the comments were racist. What was your take on how long it took to get to that point and how things unfolded?
I mean, I thought it was absolutely staggering. It took Rishi Sunak 24 hours to condemn these racist, reprehensible comments about Diane Abbott. I think that shows how weak Rishi Sunak is, because you'll remember a couple of weeks ago it took him a while to take on now the Reform MP, Lee Anderson, for his Islamophobic comments. He should have been out there condemning these comments immediately. But fundamentally, he's taken £10 million from this individual. Every Tory MP and candidate handing out leaflets, paying for Facebook advertising, it's funded by this £10 million from this individual who's made these deeply, deeply racist, offensive comments. If Rishi Sunak had anything about him, if he had any backbone, he would pay that money back today. But actually, you've had a Conservative minister on the BBC just a few moments ago saying they would take another £10 million from this individual. I think that just shows you how weak and how desperate the Tory party have become under Rishi Sunak.
Would Labour return the money in the same circumstances?
Well, we wouldn't. Well, of course. I mean, most certainly would not be taking money from an individual who has expressed his opinions in this way. It's not just the comments about Diane Abbott. He's in the newspapers today. Apparently, he's also said some very offensive comments about people from Indian heritage. I mean, this is absolutely astonishing that Rishi Sunak won't pay this £10 million back.
Kevin Hollinrake was on with us earlier, and I asked him whether they were happy to spend the money. His answer was to say, on the basis that he's not racist, that we would be happy to continue to spend the money. I guess my question there is it possible for someone to say something wrong, do something wrong as racism?
Words which the public get so fed up of. At the end of the day, Kevin Hollinrake is going to be putting out leaflets in his North Yorkshire constituency, paid by this individual who's made these deeply, deeply offensive, reprehensible remarks about Diane Abbott and people of Indian heritage. The decent thing, the right thing, would be to pay this money back. Are they really that desperate for their leaflets in an election campaign that they need this man's money? I mean, come on, they should pay the money back. That's the right thing to do.
So I just wanted to step back a little bit, because particularly in your first answer there, you condemned the time it took for the Conservatives to act. Is it a bit rich for Labour to do that when, with the issues around Azhar Ali, it took 2.5 days for him to be removed as the Labour candidate? In fact, a couple of your colleagues, Pat McFadden, Nick Thomas-Symonds, came on to Sky's Air on the Sunday and the Monday, respectively, if I remember, to try and explain why it was still OK that he was a candidate. I just wonder whether both parties should be stepping back and together calling out extremism when it happens and not politicising it, which is clearly happening somewhat here.
But in the instance of the Rochdale, we did suspend him, and actually that meant we had no Labour candidate in that by-election.
With all due respect, your first answer specifically said that Conservatives took too long here. I mean, it's fair to say that Labour took too long to suspend that candidate as well.
But there was, for the comments, an immediate apology, but then subsequent comments emerged from that individual. But we took a decision, we withdrew a Labour candidate, which has a political implication for us. The Conservative Party here are refusing to take a decision which has a political implication for them, i.e. hand the £10 million back. So I do think it's a different scenario.
Could both parties step away from the politicisation of this?
I think when you confront racism, Islamophobia in society, anti-Semitism, I think you have to challenge it, whether that is difficult for your party or not. We've done a lot in the Labour Party to change the Labour Party under Keir Starmer's leadership to deal with the problems that we had with anti-Semitism. That took leadership, that took a strong approach from Keir Starmer, but Rishi Sunak's not doing the same, is he? He dilly-dallied around Lee Anderson and his Islamophobic remarks. He dilly-dallied on this thing. And I think in the end it's because he's so weak. Look, you only need to go over there and you can talk to Tory MPs who are questioning whether Rishi Sunak can continue in power or not, whether his time is up. We know he's overseeing an absolutely chaotic party and he's struggling to get a grip and he's not in control of events. But he should when he's confronted with racism, do the decent thing and hand this money back.
Of course, many would say the actions around Azarali didn't show strong leadership, at least for the first couple of days when he was maintained as a candidate. Wanted to move on and touch on the announcement today from the government around postmasters. Just the fundamental principle here that is now going to be enacted into law of overturning the judiciary with legislation. Is that something that you think the government is right to go as far to do and that Labour will uphold? And how does Labour consider whether that should ever be done again?
Well, it's a very particular set of circumstances because of this long miscarriage of justice in the way in which our sub-postmasters were treated. So we do welcome what has been announced. We hope this legislation can proceed at a reasonable pace. Of course, we also want to see appropriate compensation paid. I think, like you, I'm sure you watched the documentary, the drama, like we all did, and was completely moved and angered by it. We really have got to deliver justice for the sub-postmasters.
Last time you were on, you were here just last week with Kay, and you struck a bet.
I'm a regular on this stool.
You struck a £10 bet about when the election's going to be. Are you getting a bit hot under the collar there? We're getting closer to the deadline for which a May election would have to be called?
Are you a betting man?
I'll do another £10 for charity. Do you want to double down?
Oh, yeah, it's for the National Association of Children of Alcoholics charity. So,
okay.
Yeah. But I think it's a serious point because last week, the Conservatives just announced a big £46 billion unfunded tax change, right? So that suggests to me they're preparing for an election.
I think it was a long-term goal.
But they need to tell us where the money is coming from to fund that. Is it going to come from borrowing? Is this a repeat of the Liz Truss shambles? Or is it going to come from pensioners? Because if you sever the link between the national insurance contributions and the state pension, how do you qualify for your pension? So today we're going to be putting this proposal under scrutiny, and I think the state pension, as we know it, is in peril with the proposals the Conservatives are putting forward on that unfunded £46 billion. So I do think an election is coming, and I think we'll be asking serious, or the British public and pensioners will be asking serious questions of Rishi Sunak on his £46 billion unfunded plan.
A long-term goal, I think, as they would frame it, but understand your framing. Jonathan Ashworth, thanks so much for joining us.